In 1971, a guy named D.B. Cooper did something very interesting. He illegally boarded a plane flying between Portland and Seattle. He claimed to have a bomb and asked for $200,000 and some parachutes. He made the passengers get off the plane in Seattle and then gave the order for the plane to fly to Mexico City with a stop for more fuel in Reno, Nevada. Lastly, about half an hour after takeoff from Seattle, he parachuted over southern Washington. Not one of them ever found him. Thus, people keep asking what happened. To the U.S. Sun, Alias shared his opinion that the D.B. Cooper mystery might finally be solved this year. He stated that the investigation has been going fast for some time now, and they are almost at the answer. A new tip recently arose that has heightened his certainty. They have discovered a tie that had been left by Cooper on the plane, and it had particles of both stainless steel and pure titanium on them. In 2013, scientist Tom Kay, working on the tie, made a great discovery. He saw thousands of particles on it, and some of them were related to aerospace. Others were very high-grade stainless steel and titanium. Alias hopes that this information will be useful in solving the case. The particle is a mystery because titanium can only be formed under high pressure. It would require a lot of pressure to wear down stainless steel into titanium, Alias said. Eric Alias, who has been looking into D.B. Cooper's case, has just found that the material was produced by a method known as cold rolling. This process is only done in special places that deal with metals. It is mainly employed to make parts for aerospace, he said. This unusual method of the 60s, which is the one that might have provided the answer about where Cooper could have worked, the existence of the various traces of evidence is enough to suggest that the hijacker was an employee of the Crucible Steel plant in Pittsburgh, which used to supply materials to Boeing during the 1960s and 70s. Many hold the opinion that Cooper was a pilot because he used some airplane terms and explained the way planes work. The kind of titanium that was discovered had 2 U.S. patents that were linked to it, produced by Crucible. He believes that this might be a significant clue for him to get to the bottom of the mystery and figure out who Cooper was. I couldn't find a place where titanium could have been cold rolled, particularly in the 1960s, Alias explained. Then, Crucible Steel is the most potential steel mill that D.B. Cooper could be from, in my opinion, as the particles mainly came from there. Alias further said that Crucible Steel was a reliable subcontractor for Boeing and was known for manufacturing parts for the aerospace industry. Up to the end of 2022, Kay's findings enabled Alias to identify a new suspect to the case. Vince Peterson, who used to work as an engineer for the company, Crucible, was suspected to be one of the hijackers. In 2002, Peterson had already gone to the great beyond, but he was only 52 years old at the time of the hijack. Alias pointed out that the tie itself contained more than 100,000 particles of these rare particles, which could be tied to Crucible Steel. He continued to believe that these discoveries were additional proof of the fact that Peterson was Cooper. The particles on the tie are very rare, and there are more than 100,000 of them. These particles are found only in a few places in the universe, and Cooper could have gotten them only from one of those places, Alias explained. His age, height, and other factors helped to narrow down the possible individuals. While Alias was pursuing the investigation, he contacted a former employee of the Crucible. Alias related to the former supervisor the description of Cooper's appearance, which he recognized as the same one that Peterson used. The hijacking happened when the company had only 8 engineers and roughly 12 assistants. Engineers were in neckties, but assistants were not. We are dealing with a small number of individuals, Alias pointed out. I have been looking at more than 100 men who worked for the Crucible and similar companies, but nobody resembles Robert Rackstraw like Vincent Peterson. It does not prove that he was the real D.B. Cooper, but it's quite convincing, Alias concluded. Alias declared his certainty that after a while he will find the evidence that would unquestionably prove or disprove Peterson's guilt in the D.B. Cooper case. He was amazed to find that the tie had been coated with a specific kind of salt particle. Alias got to know that Peterson had investigated the influence of salt on titanium in great detail and had even published an academic paper on this topic. Alias made an attempt to get in touch with Peterson's son, but he didn't buy into the idea that his father was D.B. Cooper. Now, Alias is ready to physically examine the tie, and he thinks that the FBI might have missed a vital clue in the tie that could contain the hijacker's DNA. The tie has a small clasp in the knot for size adjustments, and Alias is of the opinion that if Cooper ever adjusted the tie, his DNA could be detected. The fact that the knot was referenced in the U.S. patent and trademark documents was made known. Alias asked 2 FBI agents if they had tested the clasp on the tie, and they said no. It is this that made Alias think that some DNA evidence could still be hidden in the tie. Last year, Alias laid a complaint with the FBI, requesting them to disclose the tie for their investigation. Nevertheless, attempts were made, but they failed. By late 2023, the judge granted the government's motion to dismiss. Cobb, a U.S. district judge, has ruled that although the D.B. Cooper case is interesting, the FOIA only requires disclosure of records and not tangible objects such as the tie in question. She used past cases, for instance, a 1971 motion regarding JFK assassination-related items, as an example of things that were not released under FOIA because they were associated with a president. For this reason, the tie that is known to be belonging to a skyjacker also does not satisfy this requirement. A tie, even one that D.B. Cooper could possibly have worn, is not a record according to the common understanding of the word because it can't be reproduced or copied. This lack of reproducibility makes it similar to physical items that are already out of the scope of FOIA, Judge Cobb argued. She added, "If the shirt and coat worn by John F. Kennedy during his assassination don't qualify for the same treatment, then surely the necktie of the rogue hijacker, D.B. Cooper, also deserves the same treatment. It's not reasonable to consider a clip-on necktie an agency record in this case." The Cooper case remains the single hijacking case in American history that has not been solved. The inquiry into this case stretched over 800 suspects, but they were still unable to locate Mr. Cooper. In 2016, the FBI finally announced the end of the investigation. Judge Cobb, in his ruling, conducted that, as for the matter of clipping on a necktie as an agency record, it does not make sense.